Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that these neighbors moved in to this apartment complex that I'm living in now. They moved in after I moved here, and all four of them. And like I said, two of them moved here from another city. Actually, they moved it here from from different states. One of them from Los Angeles, which is where my targeting started. And also, I was going to say that that the apartment complex that I'm living in is a low income apartment complex, and I don't know if that's associated, but I've never been in a situation before where I knew that that people in my apartment complex were gang stalkers. I've had situations where I suspected, but I've never had, because you know how the gang stalkers are. They let you know that they're gang stalkers. And I've never had a situation where they've been living in my apartment complex and they've let me know that they're gang stalkers. You know what I mean? Living in my apartment. So that's something that has never happened before. And so I feel like maybe this network is planning to frame me for something and then have these neighbors provide false testimony. You know, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if that's what they're planning to do. It's scary. It's really, really scary, you guys. I want you to be aware of it. So I hope that if something happens to me, you'll say something, you'll speak out, because I really, there have been other things going on that I don't have time to get into, that it seems like they are threatening, like it seems like they are planning to frame me for something. So, and I've noticed in the past that a lot of times it does seem like they try to establish relationships with you sometimes, the gang stalkers. And I think the reason they do that is so that their false testimony will be more believed. You know what I mean? Because they're total strangers and they're saying things about you and they're telling lies about you. They're spreading false information. To somebody who's reasonably intelligent, they might listen to that and think, well, why should I listen to you? You don't even know that person. You know, that person doesn't even know you. So I think that's why they try to establish relationships with you. And so they might try to befriend you and so that they can get into a situation where at least other people think that you're friends with that person, so that when they tell lies about you, those other people are more likely to believe it because they think that you have a close relationship with that person. I've just noticed they do that in the past, and I feel like that's what they're trying to do now. So the other neighborhood kid, he's a little bit older, he's about 8 years old, was playing around my son one day, and my son said, I heard my son say, "Don't." And I looked up, and this neighborhood kid was running his hand along my son's chin. And I mean, I think I asked him about it, what was going on, but they didn't really say anything. Neither one, my son or him. They just kind of like, oh, nothing, blah, blah, blah. But then later, my son had a little drop of blood. He had like a drop of fresh blood coming off of his chin in that same area. And I've never seen that before. So if it was a bug bite or something like that, I've never seen any bug bite like that before in my life. It was more like if you've ever had been to the doctor where they prick your finger and they draw like a little drop of blood off your finger for a blood test. That was more like what that was like, and it was just odd. I've just never had that happen before. I mean, I hope it was just a bug bite, but like I said, I've never seen a bug bite like that before. I mean, I don't know. And then the other thing, there was another incident with the neighbors that was kind of strange. It was these two neighbors. So I told you there were these 4 neighbors. And the 2 of them, there was this incident where their appearance was changing, and specifically it was their hair. And what happened was, it was so strange. The one neighbor had this specific hair color and style, and then that color and style switched over, and the other neighbor did not have this style, okay? But then the hairstyle like switched between the neighbors. Like one day it was on this one neighbor, and then the next day it was on the other neighbor. And I mean, I don't know if they were just playing around with wigs, or I'm not really sure what was going on with that, but it was definitely odd. So I'm not sure what that was all about. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through some more incidents that have been happening at the park in the last 3 months. This was back in March, I think. I was at the park, and there was this group of people behind me, and this woman was talking about something that had happened with me like a year prior. I think it was like a year before. And I kind of thought, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe she's talking about someone else. But then this teenager joined up with their group, and he yelled this common trigger word that the gang stalkers use with me. And I really don't, I actually have no idea why they use this one trigger word. I just know that they do. They've been using it for a couple of years now. And so he used that, he yelled that word, which I recognize as one of their trigger words with me. And so I kind of nonchalantly just turned around in that direction, and then I kind of turned back around. And when I did that, the kid yelled something like, "Don't turn around or we'll look at you," or something like that. And so that at that point that was pretty much my confirmation that, okay, yeah, they were gang stalkers. But then later when I went home and I was writing it in my journal, because I always keep a journal, or at least I try to, of all these incidents. When I went home and I was writing this in my journal, and I wasn't talking about it out loud or anything like that. But when I was writing the trigger word that the kid used, when I was writing it down, my son started saying that word out loud as I was writing it. It was very weird. And like I said, I wasn't saying it out loud or anything like that. It was just, that was really, really weird. Well, that same day when we at the park, when that group was behind me saying all that, and I also heard this lady say, she was behind me, and she said, "Oh, I'm at the lab." And she kind of chuckled about it, like the laboratory. And so I kind of just turned around to look, and I saw a lady walking by but I didn't see anybody with her, so I don't know if she was talking on the phone or what, but she kind of, she, like I said, she chuckled and said that she was at the lab, which is really odd because, I mean, we were in a public park outside. It wasn't, to call the park a laboratory like they're conducting experiments there or something. It was just odd. And then there was another time when I was at the park when this man was riding by on his bike, and he stopped to say something specifically to me. Again, just so you guys know, all of these people are total strangers. I don't know anybody in this town. I didn't grow up here. I've only lived here for 2 years. And so all of these incidents that happen, it's all total strangers. I have no idea why these people do these things. And it happens at every town that I move to. So it's something that just, it doesn't matter what state I live in or what town I live in. It's the same kind of stuff. So it's not associated with normal social situations. So anyway, another time I was at this park, and this man rode by on a bicycle, and he stopped specifically to say something to me, but I had headphones on, so I didn't hear the whole thing that he said. I just heard, I took off my headphones to hear what he was saying to me, because I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I do not assume that people are gang stalkers. In fact, the opposite. I always assume that people are just normal people. And so, this man was saying something to me, so I kind of took my headphone off to hear what he was saying. And my inclination, the only word that I heard was relax. I didn't hear the rest of what he said. It was like the end of his statement, and it was something about relax. And my first instinct was to just kind of smile and nod and just go back to watching my son. But I just noticed that the tone of his voice was just really hostile almost, and the expression on his face was, hostile, and his body, his demeanor was just a very hostile demeanor and expression on his face, and the tone of his voice and everything. And I thought, wow, that's whatever it was he just said to me, it wasn't a good thing. And I know he wasn't telling me to relax, because I was already sitting in this very, very relaxed position. And so I knew that he wasn't telling me to relax. And so I wondered if he had said to me something like, the last thing you should do right now is relax, or something like that. But I don't know what he said, because like I said, I only heard the last word, but it was like this hostile way that he said it. And okay, so then there was this other time again where I was at the park, and there was this group of people there, and again, I didn't think anything of it because, like I said, I don't assume that people are gang stalkers. But as soon as I went over and I decided where to sit, and I set my stuff down and I went to sit down, as soon as I did that, somebody from that group said, "We're talking about you." And they said it really loud enough for me to hear. "We're talking about you." Well, that's a key phrase that the gang stalkers have used with me in the past. I remember that it actually started around the year 2000. I was sitting in this public place reading a book, and this girl that I didn't even know, she was with this guy, and she was sitting pretty close to me, but some distance away, but there was nobody else in the vicinity. It was just me, and she was looking right at me, and she said, "We're talking about you." And she said it in this really hostile manner, and I just remember thinking, why is she talking to me? I'm not even looking at her. I don't know her. And it was just another one of those situations. So that's a key phrase that they've used with me before. So I kind of, I heard that, and I kind of thought maybe it was a coincidence, but then one of them described the clothing that I was wearing, and they said, "Oh, she's wearing da-da-da-da-da," and then they described something that I was wearing, and then they were saying she's crazy. And I mean, it it was kind of disturbing situation. Okay, so I'm going to have to start the next part to this video. The link is below.